In the endless scroll of TikTok, a simple challenge can turn into a fatal mistake. Tonight you'll see how innocent trends became deadly traps, claiming real lives. Welcome back to The Dark Narrator. Turn off the lights, and let's begin. The Blackout Challenge. It began like so many other online trends. A dare, a challenge, something that kids shared for fun, for attention, for that quick rush of digital validation. But this one was different. This one demanded oxygen, and sometimes it didn't give it back. The Blackout Challenge spread quietly at first, circulating through short videos, school corridors, and whispered conversations among children who didn't fully understand what they were doing. The idea was simple: restrict your breathing until you faint. Record it, post it, get views. What many of them didn't realize was that a few seconds too long could mean brain damage, cardiac arrest, or death. And by the time parents found out, for many families the damage was irreversible. In several countries, reports began to emerge almost simultaneously. Children as young as 8 were found unconscious in their bedrooms, in bathrooms, on the floor beside a phone that had been recording everything. They weren't trying to hurt themselves. They weren't suicidal. They were trying to participate in something they believed everyone else was doing. They were trying to belong. Parents described the same heartbreaking scene: a door that stayed closed too long, a silence that felt wrong, and the sudden realization that their child wasn't breathing. Emergency teams rushed in, but for many victims it was already too late. No warning, no second chance, just a trend that turned deadly. As the deaths increased, families began to demand accountability. Lawsuits were filed. Tech companies were accused of failing to remove dangerous content fast enough, of allowing harmful videos to spread unchecked. Some courts agreed. Others said the responsibility belonged to parents, not platforms. But while adults debated, children continued to imitate a challenge they didn't understand, chasing a moment of thrill that could cost them their lives. For investigators and psychologists, one detail was deeply disturbing. The Blackout Challenge wasn't new. Versions of it had existed for decades, long before the internet, but the digital age amplified it, accelerated it, made it accessible to millions of children who could stumble upon it with a single swipe. Visibility turned a local danger into a global catastrophe. In the aftermath, grieving families began to speak publicly. They showed photos of their children, smiling, alive, promising futures cut short by seconds of oxygen deprivation. Their message was always the same: this wasn't suicide, this wasn't rebellion. This was a deadly misunderstanding amplified by the viral machinery of the internet. The Blackout Challenge became one of the clearest and most tragic reminders of how online spaces can turn dangerous without warning. A challenge meant to entertain, a dare meant to impress friends, and a generation of kids caught between curiosity, peer pressure, and the invisible risks hidden behind a phone screen. Many of the families still fight today, trying to prevent the same tragedy from happening again. But the hardest part to accept is that most victims never thought they were in real danger. They were just children, following a trend that promised fun and delivered death. The Benadryl Challenge. It began like a twisted experiment disguised as entertainment. Teenagers online were daring each other to take massive doses of Benadryl, chasing hallucinations, trying to film themselves acting strange, confused, trippy. It was supposed to be funny. It was supposed to be harmless. But the human body has limits, and this challenge pushed straight through them. Jacob Stevens was only 13. Too young to understand the real danger behind a handful of pink pills. Too young to imagine that something sold over the counter could shut down a heart or disrupt the electrical signals of the brain. He was like so many others, caught between curiosity, peer pressure, and the silent belief that nothing bad would happen to him. Jacob set up his phone to record. He took the pills. And at first, everything seemed like the videos he had seen online. Laughter, confusion, the feeling of losing control. But very quickly, the challenge turned into something else entirely. His body began to tremble, his muscles locked. And before anyone around him understood what was happening, Jacob was on the floor, seizing violently. The emergency team rushed him to the hospital, but the damage had already begun. His brain was swelling, his heart rhythm was unstable, and his body was fighting a chemical storm it couldn't survive. The doctors did everything they could, Machines breathed for him. Medications tried to regulate the chaos inside his blood. But after days in the hospital, Jacob's body simply couldn't continue. His life ended because of a trend that promised a few likes, a few moments of attention, and a high that never came. For Jacob's family, the nightmare didn't end with the announcement of his death. They had to watch the world talk about the challenge like it was just another online game, while their son became a cautionary headline. His father described the moment he watched Jacob seize on camera as the most horrifying thing he had ever seen, something no parent should ever have to witness. Medical experts warned that the challenge was extraordinarily dangerous. High doses of Benadryl can cause extreme dehydration, cardiac arrhythmias, delirium, seizures, and fatal overdose. The pills don't guarantee hallucinations, they guarantee toxicity, and yet videos continued to circulate, showing teens swallowing handfuls like candy. The Benadryl challenge became another reminder of how quickly misinformation can spread, how easily danger can hide behind a filter and a hashtag. Teenagers often believe they're invincible, that the worst outcomes only happen to other people. Jacob's story shattered that illusion. In the aftermath, his family dedicated themselves to warning others, hoping their son would be the last victim. But the truth is darker. As long as online trends reward risk, as long as young people crave viral attention, the line between challenge and tragedy will continue to blur. Jacob didn't want to die. He didn't even want to get hurt. He just wanted to fit in, to participate, to be part of something. Instead, he became one of the clearest, most heartbreaking examples of how a simple decision, made in seconds, can become irreversible. The fire challenge. Some online trends are reckless, others are dangerous. But the fire challenge was something else entirely, a dare so violent, so irrational, that it felt like watching a slow-motion tragedy unfold in real time. Participants were encouraged to pour alcohol on their skin, strike a lighter, and record themselves as their bodies burst into flames. The goal was to last a few seconds, laugh it off, and post the video. But fire doesn't negotiate. Fire doesn't wait. Fire doesn't forgive mistakes. In the United States, a 13-year-old girl watched these videos the same way many teenagers did, with curiosity, disbelief, and a sense that she was untouchable. She didn't see the burns, the aftermath, the pain. She saw the views, the comments, the attention, and like so many others, she convinced herself that she could try it too, just once, just for fun, just for the video. She covered her skin in rubbing alcohol, turned on her camera, and lit the flame. The explosion was instant. Alcohol burns fast, hotter than most people realize, and it spreads across the skin in seconds. She panicked. She tried to put it out. But by the time help arrived, the damage was already catastrophic. More than half of her body was burned, deep, severe burns that destroyed layers of skin, muscle, and nerve. Doctors fought tirelessly. They performed surgeries, skin grafts, and aggressive treatments to control the infections that follow massive burn injuries. For a while, her family believed she might pull through. But the human body is fragile. The wounds were too extensive, the infections too strong, and her small frame couldn't fight them forever. Days later, she died in the hospital. Her story became one of the most devastating warnings about the fire challenge, a trend that transformed a moment of curiosity into lifelong scars for some and death for others. Firefighters and doctors begged the public to understand the risks. Parents pleaded with their children, but online the videos kept circulating. Clips of teens laughing while flames spread across their bodies, unaware that they were seconds away from disaster. The challenge revealed something unsettling about digital culture, the way danger becomes entertainment, the way teenagers will risk their lives for a few seconds of attention, and the way the internet can normalize behavior that would be unthinkable in any other context. The 13-year-old girl wasn't reckless or rebellious or self-destructive. She was a child who didn't understand how quickly fire can take control, how fast smoke fills the lungs, how alcohol turns skin into fuel. She believed she had time to stop. She didn't. Her death became a symbol of the cost of viral dares, a reminder that behind every challenge there are real bodies, real injuries, and real families left behind. And while her story saved others from repeating the same mistake, It came at a price no family should ever have to pay. The Orbeez Shooting Challenge. It started like a prank. Another trend where teenagers filmed themselves shooting colorful Orbeez from toy guns, laughing as the tiny gel beads bounced off strangers. It looked harmless, almost childish, the kind of thing you'd expect to see in a water gun fight. But the problem wasn't the beads, the problem was the world they were fired into. In cities across the US, reports began to pile up. Teens were driving around ambushing pedestrians, surprising people at bus stops, hitting cyclists, delivery workers, store employees, anyone unlucky enough to be nearby. The videos flooded social media, edited with music and effects to make the attacks look funny, harmless, entertaining. But for the victims, there was nothing funny about a sudden burst of pain from a gun-shaped weapon pointed at their face. And in a country where real violence is never far away, not everyone was willing to assume the gun was fake. One night, a 16-year-old joined his friends to film their own version of the Orbeez Shooting Challenge. They drove through a neighborhood, laughing, recording, hitting strangers with gel beads while the camera rolled. But when they fired at the wrong man, everything changed. The man felt the impact. He saw the gun. And in that split second, he didn't see toy beads. He didn't see teenagers fooling around. He saw an attack. He saw danger. He saw a threat that needed to be stopped. He pulled out a real gun and fired. The bullet hit the teenager instantly. When the car came to a stop, the boy wasn't moving. No time for explanations, no time for apologies, no time to undo a decision made in panic. By the time paramedics arrived, the 16-year-old was already gone. The Orbeez Shooting Challenge had finally crossed the line between prank and fatal misunderstanding. Police departments across the country began issuing warnings, reminding families that toy guns painted black, silver, or metallic can be indistinguishable from real firearms. From a distance, in the dark, under stress, there is no difference. And for people living in neighborhoods marked by violence, a split-second decision can mean the difference between life and death. The tragedy sparked debates everywhere. Parents demanded to know why these challenges were allowed to spread. Communities argued that the victim of the prank had every right to defend himself. Others claimed the shooting was excessive. But behind every argument stood a painful truth. None of this should have happened. The challenge wasn't supposed to kill anyone. The teenagers weren't trying to hurt people. They were chasing laughs, views, the thrill of a viral moment. They didn't realize that pointing a weapon, any weapon but strangers, carries a risk far greater than a few seconds of footage. The 16-year-old paid with his life for a prank that never should have left the screen. And the man who fired the shot will carry the weight of that night forever, knowing that fear and misunderstanding collided in the worst possible way. The Orbeez Shooting Challenge showed just how quickly a harmless trend can ignite real-world violence, how the digital world distorts danger, and how a toy can become a weapon simply because someone believed it was. The Skull Breaker Challenge. It looked innocent at first. 3 friends standing together laughing, preparing to film a harmless schoolyard prank. But the Skull Breaker Challenge wasn't a prank. It was a calculated setup disguised as a trend, a trap where the victim never knew what was coming until gravity pulled them straight to the ground. The challenge worked like this. 2 people stood on either side of a third. On camera, they all pretended they were about to jump at the same time. But while the middle participant leaped into the air, the 2 on the sides kicked his legs out from under him. The victim didn't fall forward or backward in a controlled motion. They fell straight down. And the human skull, despite the name of the challenge, is not designed to survive a free fall onto concrete. Around the world, emergency rooms began reporting the same pattern: fractured skulls, broken necks, concussions so severe they caused memory loss, seizures, and long-term brain damage. Parents described getting phone calls from schools, not realizing that their children had become victims of a dangerous dare that spread faster than teachers could understand it. One of the most heartbreaking cases involved a young teenager who agreed to participate because she trusted her friends. She didn't know she was the target. She didn't know they had already planned the joke without telling her. The moment she jumped, her legs were swept out from under her. She fell backward, unable to protect herself, and her head slammed against the ground. She was unconscious before she even realized she was falling. At the hospital, Doctors struggled to manage the bleeding, the swelling, the damage spreading through her brain. She survived the impact, but not the complications that followed. Within days, she succumbed to the injuries created by a challenge she never volunteered for in the first place. Her family described the pain of watching her slip away, knowing she had been betrayed by kids she considered friends. For investigators, the case raised a chilling question. When does a challenge stop being a prank and become an assault? In many countries, schools issued warnings and disciplinary actions. Some teens were charged with physical aggression, others with reckless endangerment. Parents recorded videos begging other families to warn their children. But online, the challenge continued to spread. The clips were quick, shocking, and for some viewers, irresistibly entertaining. They saw the laughter, the setup, the fall. They didn't see the aftermath, the hospital beds, the surgeries, the funerals. The Skullbreaker challenge exposed something dark about the viral world. People forget that bodies break. They forget that bones shatter, that skulls fracture, that the brain can be damaged in a second and never fully recover. It showed how quickly a moment of peer pressure, filmed for views, can turn into irreversible tragedy. And behind every funny video shared online, there was a victim hitting the ground with no way to protect themselves. And families left to pick up the pieces of a life changed or ended in an instant. And those were just a few of the challenges that turned deadly, reminding us how a simple trend can spiral into real-world tragedy. Behind every viral video, there are families who never get their loved ones back, and a platform that keeps moving on to the next trend like nothing happened. Now I want to hear from you. Which case shocked you the most? And do you think social media platforms should be held responsible for challenges like these, or is the blame only on the people who take part? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm really curious. If you want more dark stories like this, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. It helps the channel a lot and keeps these deep dives into the darker side of the internet coming. See you in the next one. Stay safe out there.